In this session, we will learn about C program language API functions available in Scilab. We will explore the API functions, and learn how to define gateway functions, to connect external C program with Scilab. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Softwares expose C, or C++ functions which are called API, as they provide an interface for external programs, to connect with the software's core, and add more custom functionality to it. Scilab also exposes C functions through which we can access its core, called Scilab Engine, from external programs, created using C or C++ programming language. Now, external programs which need to connect to Scilab, must follow certain rules to ensure proper functioning. Gateway functions are programmed using Scilab API functions library, and they form the link between the external function and the Scilab engine. We can call any Scilab function or access variables from our C program using the API functions, and create custom extensions that can be used easily in Scilab. Scilab has API functions for nearly all of its mathematical operations like creating m by n matrices, define strings, define and operate on polynomials, and has many common functions to get data from the Scilab engine. These API functions are grouped as per their functionality, which helps the programmer to select functions as per their program logic and needs. Here, we list out some commonly used API functions available in Scilab. Using double functions, we can create matrices and data variables and pass it to Scilab. We can use Scilab_call function from the common functions category, to call any of the standard Scilab function from within our gateway function. The gateway function has a specific prototype, in which the input arguments and their order is fixed. We need to define our gateway function using this prototype, and use the arguments with the API functions to access the data from Scilab engine. N in and N out indicate number of input and output arguments which we need in our program. Input and output arguments are passed using a pointer to a special variable called Scilab var. For multiple input and output arguments, the in and out object is an array of Scilab var variables. In the gateway function definition, Scilab env variable is the pointer passed by Scilab to the gateway function. It is only passed to gateway function to maintain the connection and is normally not used. Scilab var variable is an array of objects which store Scilab data objects. It can store objects of matrices, strings, and data which we pass from Scilab to the external function. Scilab opt variable is an array where Scilab passes arguments that are defined as optional in the calling function. Here, we highlight some basic steps to define the gateway function. First, we verify the type and number of input arguments passed to the function. Then, using the API functions, we get the internal data from Scilab engine and use it in our program. Then our program will return the results of its computation, which we will convert it into Scilab objects and finally return it to Scilab. Now, we take a simple example to develop an external function, which can perform matrix vector multiplication. We create matrix A and vector B data variables in Scilab. Then we invoke our custom function and pass the variables. Then, the function performs the multiplication and returns the result. First, we will understand this process in Scilab, and then we will discuss the gateway function code in detail. In the working directory, we have a dynamic link library file named libmvp. In this DLL file, we have our externally defined function, called MVP, short for matrix vector multiplication. The loader script file is used to load the DLL into Scilab. We will explore its contents in our next session. Now, we define a 2D matrix A having 3 rows and 3 columns. And vector B. Now, we call the MVP function and pass the matrix A and vector B to it. The function then returns the result vector. Now, we multiply matrix A and vector B in Scilab using the standard multiplication operator, and compare the two results. So this way we can use external functions in Scilab. Now let's see the code of the gateway function MVP. Here, we have opened the C file of the MVP function in Visual Studio Code Editor. First, we begin by including all the necessary header files to access the Scilab API library. All the header files are found in the modules folder in the Scilab installation directory. We define the gateway function, sci_MVP, using the gateway definition. Then we define and initialize our internal variables. Now, our first step is to check the number of arguments passed, and verify the type of arguments. We use the API function Scilab_isMatrix2D, to verify that the first argument we get is a 2D matrix. Then we get the dimensions of the matrix using the function Scilab_getDim2D. Then using Scilab_getDoubleArray function, we get the pointer to the 2D matrix data. This pointer is a 2D array which stores the matrix data in column major format. Then, we create the output vector variable, and get its pointer in variable C. This output variable is already stored in the Scilab var variable, out, which will be returned to Scilab engine. Now, we perform the matrix vector multiplication where vector C is calculated and then it is returned back to Scilab. We can also call other external functions in the code if required, and pass the data for calculations. So, in this way we define our gateway function. In the next module, we will explore how to compile this code within Scilab. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you for your interest and attention.